welcome to Confronting the Darkness. I'm Rob Jacobs.
And I'm Father Bob Bailey.
On this episode of Confronting the Darkness, we're going to be speaking with two special guests tonight, Kenneth and Farah Rose Deel. Welcome, Ken and Farah.
Hello.
How are you?
Welcome, thank you.
It's nice to have you guys on. I thought we'd start and talk a little bit about your ministry, the Swords of St. Michael.
A little background is in 2008, we thought, well, it was like 2007, the idea got tossed around that there's a problem with finding qualified individuals. I think it started with a psychologist, that a client actually went to a psychologist and he stamped his forehead insane, and he was having spiritual warfare issues, borderline possession. And I already knew this, and I thought, we need a network or like a list, a white list of qualified individuals in the medical and psychological mental health field who also understand the spiritual implications of both.
Right.
And, in addition to finding clergy, which red tape was a lot harder 6 to 8 years ago, Father Bob probably, by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried to find qualified clergy, too, and it was a lot of legwork.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
Didn't get very far. Got a lot of people. I didn't realize how far the name Catholic has been used beyond the Roman Catholic Church, and it was a great difficulty. And it's hard to call an office and just go, do you believe in God? And then, it's like some sort of buzzword question. And, so a cordial letter or something is probably the better way to do it now. But I just didn't have the help in the volunteer work back then. We had a Ning group, that was like the MySpace-style communities. Back then it was free, and then they went to charging. And I think that was about the extent of it. I put, non-denominational. I put some, non-Catholic ministers in there just to be ecumenical.
Mm-hmm.
And when I backed away from the work because of some family issues and life changes, I left it in charge of somebody who basically kind of ran it into the ground by making it exclusively Roman Catholic in the community, and it went from like 300 members down to about 48.
Wow.
Something like that. So then we tried. Me and my wife, we wanted to resurrect it, and we started in July. And you could take this is the part where you go. Yes. Take over, Farah, because this is the part where you and me decide to join forces and get this done.
Okay.
Ooh.
Well, to take it from here, basically, I think what he's trying to say is that when you have a certain set of experiences in your life and you've been led to a ministry and you get to it and you realize that you're falling short for some reason or another, you've got to put it away. You've got to step out of it and you've got to get back in your walk in relationship, because it's all about relationships. So Kenny and I, being married, having to have our previous marriages annulled, coming into the state of grace, trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing, this was a shoe, and we had to revive the Swords of St. Michael. We had to bring it back to where his original vision was. So in July, instead of taking it back to the MySpace, general forum of the internet, as what would have been possible, we decided to tap into the Facebook. This is just broader than, it's not just musicians, it's not just groupies, it's a little bit of everything and anybody. And now, as you probably already know, there's so many similar sites to it. But Facebook, for the demographics and the people that we are trying to hit, this hits the exact age.
Yep.
And everybody out there that we are actually trying to reach with the truth of, our experiences, the gentleness of a Franciscan attitude, which, we are initiates and applicants to the OSB Franciscans. It helps us in establishing the one-on-one contact in a secular world as well as a Catholic world, to let people know what we're doing, who we're about, who we are, and what we're trying to do, which is actually help people in paranormal fields, in metaphysical fields, understand that there are certain ways that work, and there's certain ways that don't, and there's certain ways that are really going to mess you up. So Swords of St. Michael, we have so far, I'd say, Orthodox, Catholic, Episcopalian, Lutheran, non-denominational, and these are either A, leaders in their communities, deacons, priests. As a matter of fact, if I may say so, we're very, very blessed and very honored to call both of you part of who we are in joining us, helping us spread the word for Swords of St. Michael. We count you as part of our brothers in Christ to help us. And this strengthens us instead of squabbling over our differences, whether you're Lutheran or Episcopalian. We come together for a central focus of, this is Jesus, this is God, this is the Word of God, Christ, and this is the way it's got to be done. And from there, we let the chips fall where they may, but we come with the basic same message that you can't mix bag things and say, okay, this is the sort of Michael. No, there is only one sort of Michael, and his name is Christ. So our ministry has grown, blossoms from just collecting the people together to help us move forward to, we have got groups called prayer warriors for teams that need to go out, either investigate properly or start off-site prayer. They have quite a few groups that have started and blossomed off, so I'll let Ken take it from here, but this has really, 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 really been just absolutely wonderful. The journey is just starting, and I'm really geeked about it. So Ken, why don't you go ahead and talk about the other groups that you've started to support Swords of St. Michael?
I wanted to say one thing, too, that it just seems, in getting to know the both of you, as we're getting to know you, it's so... what God is doing with us as well as with you seems so compatible. We have the same mind, the same spirit, the same goals, and it's incredible. It's just, it didn't happen by accident.
Right.
No accident whatsoever. We're both blown away that it happened at all.
Yeah, it's mutual.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ken.
we have the Archdiocese here, and we're building up the org, and then we're going to introduce it to the bishop through our tribunal locally here, who we are in contact with right now, and he's referring cases to them as they come to us as individuals, not to the org, but we would put the org up to something if they're actually closer, like closer to Cape Girardeau or something like that. We actually might send someone over if we need a physical person to be there in person to investigate.
Right.
But, Father Bob, as I was telling Rob earlier, is a rare spiritual warfare priest, and we don't seem to have any around here. We're kind of an island in our own here, and we're hoping to build a lot more Roman Catholic priests and, have ones like Father Bob here, and I'd like to build upon that definitely, so they don't feel so alone in this world.
We're struggling the same way.
Yeah, it's harder with clergy, which is why we're trying to empower and teach good, upstanding, baptized way Christians, because we're having such a problem with clergy at this point. So
yeah, we get a lot of lay people that are looking to become warriors, which is great because that does help out in other areas. But as far as official, real clergy, it's not as easy, unfortunately, especially around the United States.
And if I can add something to that too, Rob, is there's a lot of misinformation out there about the Roman Rite, as Father Bob can speak, but what we're finding from lay ministers and members in our church, leaders in our church, is that the common person thinks that just because Pope Francis came out with the old rite from the 1600s, from the original, so now we've got the Roman. What is it? There's two different rites. Father Bob, help me out here.
There's the Tridentine.
The minor rite, and the major rite. Is that it? The minor and the major?
Oh, you mean the two liturgies, the old mass?
Yes.
They have They have the ordinary form, which is what we have now, and then actually it was Pope Benedict. Pope Francis is
Pope Benedict.
Yes, it was Pope Francis who's a proponent of the new mass in the vernacular. But they have the ordinary rite, which I say, exclusively. And then there's also called the extraordinary rite for those who are attached to the older form of what they call the Tridentine Latin Mass, which is when the priest faces is back to the people and offers it on the altar facing east, and it's a little bit more complicated, the ritual. It wasn't something I was ever brought up with.
I don't know if you're seeing this, Father, or not, but what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of people that are either agnostic, pagan, or a little Christian, thinking that they can get the two rites, you know, the minor and the major, as common people call them, and think that, well, they can perform exorcisms because, you know, they can do the minor rite. And as Ken and I were saying, it's like, it's hard enough to find Roman Catholic Orthodox priests that will help with these situations, much less one that is of another Protestant faith, such as Episcopalian, Lutheran, that is pious enough and has the faith and isn't afraid. There's so many priests and pastors that are so afraid of this, they really they don't know how to handle it.
Right, and I think what you're talking about now is the minor or the solemn rite of exorcism. There's a minor version, right, that, like in other words, and I don't use the word because it gets people confused, but like exorcism over place. I don't need permission to do a blessing of a place or over an object or whatever, a house or whatever. That's a minor rite of exorcism. Then there is also, like the St. Michael prayer is a minor exorcism, you know. But then there is the public, the major rite of exorcism, the ritual, which can only be done, you know, by a priest that is appointed by the bishop. And it usually...
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And in fact, Pope Francis, I truly believe, from what I saw, and I saw it many times, when he laid hands on that young man, he was doing a minor rite of exorcism in St. Peter's Square.
Yeah, I remember seeing that Pope performs exorcism and fails, and boy, people jumped all over that. You know, it's like he wasn't performing an exorcism.
No.
He had 45 minutes going on there.
Yeah, no, he was
just a simple thing like, be gone in Jesus' name.
Right,
like that.
Yeah.
I think
that simple exorcism is supposed to be, you know, okay for laity, but then again, we're supposed to really work through the church on this. If anybody is Roman Catholic, and we're talking about our church protocols, and that's where my wife is talking about the dangers too, is that we're not supposed to go in there and even do the minor exorcism, because prayer teams even get beat up on.
Exactly.
Everybody really has to rethink it before and probably talk to their spiritual director in the church, and hopefully they have one.
Right.
So I imagine.
I mean, we just got into a case, the first ever that we've seen of what I believe is actual true possession, which is rare. And I tried for over an hour with Rob, and just couldn't. And I realized, you know, this fits the qualifications. So I called the local bishop there in Massachusetts, and actually he was very kind. He called me back, and I talked to the exorcist of the diocese. But again, you know what? I because I don't have permission to do the exorcism, it's dangerous. People say, well, that's awful restrictive. No, it's for the protection of the priest, the laity, and everything. Because once you start, you're entering into a spiritual battle that, you know, everybody thinks it's fun or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I want to do this, but they don't realize it's a battle. It's a battle, you know.
It's a battle for their soul.
Exactly.
What we try to tell people is that this isn't stubbing your toe. This isn't cutting off a finger.
Right.
This is a battle for your soul, your sanity. And it doesn't just affect you. It affects everybody in that room, anybody that's had contact with either one of you. And Ken and I are seeing more and more of that.
Yeah.
We just had an incident the other day where he is a little bit of an empath in a way that, you know, not a clairvoyant way, but in a way that, you know, somebody with a lot of depression hands him something, he actually picks up on it, and he couldn't figure out why he was so upset and why he was so sad. And I'm like, you know, dancing around the room with him, trying to cheer him up. It was ridiculous.
Right.
And he finally says, I just wrote in the book, when you touch objects and they were either, you know, carried, handled, or they were cursed, I'm like, yeah, hello, what did you just have your hands on?
Yeah, right,
People
right.
don't realize it really, really is a spiritual battle.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, totally eluded me. I just wrote in the book, and I started getting a little kind of affected yesterday, and I realized I had these tools out. And I didn't realize that until today, 24 hours later. It was still lingering. It's like, I haven't felt like this since my mom died.
wow.
And the tools happened to be from, that household. And I remember that bad feeling before. And so I'm still getting used to it. And, it's just kind of like that sensitivity that helps with the case.
Sure, it's like a discernment of
I wanted to be a
spirits.
psychologist once. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, getting back to the Swords of St. Michael, you, Farah was saying that you began some, some work on that and different things, aspects within the Swords of St. Michael.
Yeah, beyond the primary goal, which was a network, we wanted a referral service so the network can be used.
Yeah, right.
And not make a public list so that people can't call people who will, because there needs to be kind of a screening process, like a case manager does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that we don't get anybody in there, because eventually we want to have all of the archdiocese exorcists. I know they have their method, but we did talk to the Indiana one after our radio show. What was his name?
Father Vincent?
I can't remember. Yeah, Father Vincent. And I can't remember his last name because Father Vincent.
Lampert. Father Vincent Lampert.
Lampert. And he says we can actually call him directly. And that used to be not possible in the old days. That you had to go to
not at all.
People. Yeah. So we're going to keep, priests like that, an exorcist, Roman Catholic, and the network, and then if we get a case in Indiana, and it's been thoroughly investigated, we might have a local priest go and check it out in person if we can't be there or someone can't be on site. But I think the red tape is starting to lighten up, which will make the org function a lot more easy. And we want to merge with, orgs like yours and share a list, for example.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So that we can have a huge referral network across the board covering a big span of the United States, and who knows, abroad,
Yeah, we just actually have been kind of editing our list a little bit to suit it a little better, and adding names and removing names, to try and make it the way it should be. I mean, like you said, the screening process is difficult. You kind of have to take people at their word if you don't know them. But you send out a questionnaire and list the do's and don'ts and what their affiliation is and this and their background.
And I think that's where, like you and I would, both our groups would be able to help one another, because you may have red flags with you, and we may have it, and I think already Rob has shared with me some who are on our list that we're not going to invite back.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that earlier.
Yeah, so
if we haven't shared that paperwork already, we should share that paperwork, because we do have our own list of questionnaires, and we actually discovered an incident where we're going to have to check someone in one of our groups, because they made the mistake of thinking just because they're accepted into a chat group of ours, there was somebody in the group that was very, very weak, not suicidal, but very, very sad, depressed. She fits the profile for probably either manic depressive or obsessive compulsive, and she's definitely got some high low-ball moments that are noticeable in her posts. We had somebody that, for the most part, just seemed very up and up, very positive, very forward-speaking, Christian, and all of a sudden he jumped on her like, nice little hawk on a rabbit, said, oh, guess what, so-and-so said this, and so-and-so, and we were like, okay, well, that's nice, I'm glad you're helping her. Come to find out that it took one step farther to totally push her over the edge. There was an overstepping of the relationship to where, there was an attraction there, and then all of a sudden, when the attraction by the other person got stronger, by the person that was, damaged emotionally and still struggling with depression, this person totally pushed her away, caused her to have panic attacks. So Kenny and I are kind of rethinking some things, some strategies, because it's so easy for any of us as humans to step over the line.
Oh, yeah.
We want to
Absolutely.
prevent this from happening again with anyone, and we're really trying to pray how to put it out there in our swords group so that we can identify possible factors that are going to make these people inclined to do this. We just can't have that. We can't have people walking into, a place where a beautiful young woman could be obsessed or infected, and all of a sudden, wow, look, love is in the air. It's a love boat.
And we've seen that,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yep. We've had another situation where somebody was invited into the page and thought they were able to take the reins and speak for you. That happened.
A couple
That
of
was not
times.
good. Yeah.
A couple of times.
No.
Yeah. That was difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they don't understand, like, or they want to become part of the network or the page, and they think they're actually now a member of the PWSM ministry, where,
Leadership.
yeah, and they, I think their intentions were good at first, and I don't know if it was a power trip or what, but it went very sour very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really difficult to handle.
One of the other things that I noticed that we had shared since the beginning is our desire to educate the masses, at least the people who are wanting to hear what we have to say and what we're projecting from our angle of the Roman Catholic Christian perspective. And now you're making videos over there, and you got together a spiritual warfare kit. We got together pamphlets and sort of St. Michael that have basic information like why are you haunted? Some notes about occult practices and the realities of the dangers of them and the way they can affect your life spiritually.
Right.
And there's one for Christian denominations that we were going to get with local ministers and put back that suggest solutions that aren't Catholic, that don't use sacramentals and holy water,
Right.
and so forth. It's kind of tips. And those things were. I got another one on deck, and I got so sidetracked with finishing one of the books though.
Right.
That we're getting away from some of that smaller ministry stuff. You ever know the Bix is, getting the book out on the market is part of the ministry. We take that money, we buy St. Benedict medals.
Right.
Right.
That makes a difference.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, did you guys have any personal or specific experiences dealing with the demonic since you've been doing, this type of work? Either one,
Kenny, where should we start?
Well, I'm sure you've got some tales.
Go back when you're, the youngest. I think is probably the where to start. It kind of explains why we were dragged into the work, more or less. I was writing the book, and I realized that if I write the book, or if I don't write the book, I was still going to be bothered, with dreams and so forth like that. And I keep a tighter ship now than I did 15 years ago, with the proper prayers. I was talking about Rob about, you have to find your balance, your personal level of spirituality. And I go to Mass, about 5 times a week, and my wife does also. And we do daily rosary. And that seems to be just about right. But back in the past, you could really feel the effects. You start writing a book, and you have nightmares, and you start seeing shadows wake you up, and you get woken out of a sound sleep from sounds that don't exist in the room, like pottery, crashing and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
It seems just like some of the old tales that you read about with Padre Pio ministering to the guys in prison. And that's not the same as going investigating a demonic haunting, surely. And I would share the story that had that relates to the type of spirit that I think it was, to do with Rob. And that was just a personal experience that I can share from about, I think it was about 1995. And I got a little kind of into the club scene.
Yeah.
And I was still a single man, never married. Wasn't really going to church every Sunday like I should. So, we fade in and out. Luckily, I'm here to stay now. So, and I woke up one morning, and it was, believe it or not, it was morning instead of 3 a.m. And I found that I was pinned down on my bed face down. Just like, and I could feel like it's though a hand was framing my face in. Like if they were straddled over me, put their palms on the pillow with my face facing a pillow on either side of my face, and was framing my face in with their hand, like holding it in place. and I was unable to move, and I could feel it as though their legs were like scissoring me with one leg on each side. And sometimes people would dig their little fingernail, being a goop or something, to tickle you, and it kind of hurts a little bit. But it's almost like I could feel bare feet, and didn't feel like normal feet. It felt like kind of gross, like calluses and kind of stuff like that.
Yep.
Digging into my shirtless, side, and the more I tried to move, the more I felt them digging in.
Wow.
Like the toenails were digging in or something.
Right.
So for a moment there, and this is unusual for me, is it was like I could see, for just a moment, I could see outside my body, and there was this thing spread all over me that had like pinkish. It looked like it had like burn victim would look. You know how the skin looks kind of uneven and imperfect and pinkish and
Yep.
kind of raw looking, and it had white hair, and it had white hair on its elbows and on its knees, and looked like it had 3 toes. I could vaguely remember, but it looked to me like what they would describe as a succubus. I didn't get sexually attacked, but I was pinned in the bed, and I think that would be probably a first stage. And if I let it go, it probably would have gotten further, because that was kind of the lifestyle that I was leading back then. When you're single and you're going to the clubs, and and I had a band, before that we did a lot of gigs and that sort of thing. So part of the lifestyle of that thing is going to involve women, and I was seeing a lot of female spirits. I'd wake up, and there'd be one standing next to my bed, and it would look real, solid in color and everything like that, except you could see them in the dark, and you shouldn't be able to.
Right.
And they would say anything, and they'd turn around and they'd walk through the wall. And so this happened sometime after those kind of experiences. Some guys online would probably brag like, I'm a chick magnet, even for ghosts. That's not what I did. I knew a guy that was like calling himself that once. What I did when I was still in this pinned position, I didn't panic and this other stuff, but it was getting hard to breathe. It was very limited for an attack when I consider all the people that wake up with sleep paralysis, because I decided, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I'm confused. So I'm going to hurl it off me. I'm going to catch it off guard. I'm going to count. I was counting and three in my head, like 1, 2, 3. So I hurled myself out of bed, rolled out of bed with all the sheets and everything, got up really fast, kind of like those, goofy kung fu. And then nothing's there.
Right.
It's gone. So I go into the bathroom. I was like, what kind of nightmare was that? Was that a dream? Because it was like I could see the room and everything the way it exactly was.
Wow.
Everything, and my thinking, you know how it is when you can recite your own address? You know the difference. But when you experience that, you question yourself. Like, I must have been dreaming. You try to rationalize it. So I go into the bathroom, and I splash my face with cold water, look in the mirror, look down the ground, and my St. Benedict medal had fallen off my shirt, off my chain during the night somehow before I went to bed.
Wow.
And I always wear that thing. I think it was something to do with that, and that's like the first physical attack that I can recall that I had.
Wow.
They always kept like a 3-foot distance, such as the one that I saw when I was 18. That looked like the typical hooded reaper kind of thing with long arm pointing at me.
Wow.
That I have often told. And I had a friend waking up because I was half asleep, and I sat up in bed and saw this black thing at the end of my bed. Didn't know if it was a person or what. And I was like, what do you want? Woke him up, and he rolls over in bed, and he sees this thing, this hulking black thing with a hood about 7 feet high, and its arm pointing at me. He sees it from the side. He had a cot next to my bed. He was a guy that's a friend of mine from the Marines, and he was visiting his girlfriend in town. And it's like we had a night light on after that night. I'll put it that way. So you can go back. The experiences are there definitely, and the haunted cases and that stuff are just kind of like reminiscent of that. But I think the big question people ask a lot of times is, did it desensitize you? Well, to a certain degree. I mean, there was a point where I actually have prayed something away and then rolled over and went back to sleep. And I haven't been able to do that for a long time, growing up and everything like that. But it depends on how terrifying and threatening it is. If it's just a shadow in the closet, sometimes they get so old. Shadow at the foot of the bed, throw my pillow at it. Like, go away. You know, that's how redundant it got. You know, when it was in the 90s and in the 80s, that kind of stuff. So,
Wow.
whatever they're waiting for a long time, I guess they never got it yet, because if they, you know, if it was asked what you want and pointed at me, so, and I'm still here, so,
Well,
living proof.
there you go. We're just about out of time, but I'd like to ask Farah if she had like a specific thing that happened to her, and I'll run this show a little bit longer.
Okay. Well, you know, to tell you the truth, there were a number of things that may happen from childhood, and I'm just going to say this. Kenny and I just turned on the show Padre Pio. If you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful movie. It's a story of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening shot is, you know, Padre Pio's on his deathbed, and he's being interviewed by somebody that's chased him for 50 years, who hasn't believed him for 50 years. And, you know, he's like, I want you to tell me the truth. When I met Ken at 2 years before my 50th birthday, I had not had anybody that had ever believed. And when I had read Ken's book, I looked at it like, I know all this stuff. I'd already read it. Since I was a child, just like I had seen Padre Pio run away from a black dog in the movie, when I was, just before I got my little Bambi lamp, you know, the little lamp that lights up, so my mother bought me, so I'd stop terrorizing her, something was coming at me constantly from the window or the closet with the nastiest, grossest smelling breath you could ever, I mean, worse than halitosis, worse than doggy breath. So from a young age, I've been constantly attacked. I've been constantly wanting, and it's been everything I can do to keep it back. And meeting Ken has just basically sealed my ability to be safer than I've ever been in my whole life.
That's
so I'm
great.
just going to end it at that.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, I mean, this time has really just flown by.
Exactly.
And we're very happy that we will have Ken and Farah for another episode talking about their books. So we look forward to hering about that.
Exactly. I'm going to ask you guys just to stay on the line. We're going to wrap up this show. So that is going to do it for this episode of Confronting the Darkness. I want to thank you both, Ken, Farah, for being on this evening. And
Thank you.
Remember, when confronting the darkness,
put on the whole armor of God
with the sword of St. Michael. God bless you.
God
Amen.
bless.
God bless you.